Finding Common Battlegrounds is an attempt by two brothers, one conservative, the other progressive, to have civil conversations about politics with a little help from their friends.
Welcome, everyone, to Finding Common Battlegrounds. This is the podcast dedicated to finding common ground between two political sides, right? The left and the right. So I've got our usual debaters, Ryan and Josh Cragen. They are brothers, but polar opposites, and they'll be representing each side of the political spectrum. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Supreme Court nominees. Was it appropriate for Biden to require that they be a woman, a black female? And was that appropriate, or is that okay? So, each of these debaters have prepared 3 questions, and that they're going to apply to the other. And if they can get the others to agree, they get brownie points. And then also our sponsor, bidet, Lux Bidets. If you're using like wipes in the toilet, you gotta grow up and just start just spray it, man, because that's
might as well just be using your hand, you barbarian.
Seriously,
gross.
Yeah, we're all big fans of bidets here. We like them. So if you use wipes, you should consider looking at getting a bidet. We're just gonna jump into it really quick. So again, each of these two have prepared 3 questions for each other. They haven't seen them, so I'm just going to throw one at the other one, and we'll see if we can get them to agree with their point. So the first question is Ryan's question for Josh. Can we agree, Josh, that the current makeup of the Supreme Court is not reflective of the demographics of our nation?
Okay. Quick background. I'm going to try and be much quicker today than I usually am. So the current makeup of the Supreme Court does not align with our citizenry, even remotely. There are 3 women and 6 men. And of course, in the US, the population slightly more female than male for a variety of reasons, which we could get into if you want. There's 1 black person and 8 white people. In the US, it's between 14 and 16% of the population is black. There's 1 Hispanic individual and 8 non-Hispanic people. Hispanic individuals are around 20% of the population now. The big one, though, that I think is really interesting, there are 6, maybe 7 Catholics and 2 Jews. Okay. Catholics are now less than 1 in 5 Americans. So they are less than 20% of the population, and Jews make up just over 1% of the US population. 30% of Americans now are non-religious. So the current makeup of the Supreme Court is not even remotely reflective of the demographics or religiosity of the US population. I have to throw this out there just kind of as a sop to the 2 of you. Why are we allowing ourselves to be ruled by papists? I don't know if anybody's going to get the reference there. Papist is like an outdated word, but it's basically people who, are governed by a pope. I think that is an interesting question. And then I have a couple of just like thought-provoking questions, but then it gets to the agreement question. If the 2 of you had it in your power, would you put 9 Mormons on the Supreme Court? And if, regardless of your answer, would you be okay if it was 9 Muslims? What about 9 atheists? Just thought-provoking questions to kind of think through this, because right now it's 7 Catholics and 2 Jews. So my question, can we agree that the current makeup of the Supreme Court is not reflective of the demographics of our nation?
Absolutely. And it might be the biggest travesty of all time, because diversity solves all problems. I've been thinking a lot about that this week. Are you being serious or are you being facetious? Like, I really can't tell.
Absolutely.
100%.
I'm totally confused.
Oh no, I'm all in here. Okay. I was thinking about it this week.
Am I being set up? Like, I'm being punked right now. I'm totally being punked.
I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. If I wanted to design a new airplane or something, right? I wouldn't hire engineers, because they're not going to get the job done. I would get a team that doesn't look like each other, because diversity is how you do things, right? In any creative enterprise, we all know that it doesn't matter what the creative enterprise is, as long as the people doing it don't look like each other, then it will succeed, because that's the biggest indicator of success is diversity. So yeah, your point's absolutely well received that it's all Catholics. I mean, this is heresy. We should probably run a couple of them out of office at least. This is crazy.
So I'm going to go with not agreeing.
We definitely.
With this.
Oh no, we need way more atheists on the Supreme Court. Absolutely.
So you don't agree? All right.
No, I absolutely agree. 100%.
Josh, like, come on. Is this
I
just
agree with
sarcasm?
you.
Like, come on.
I agree.
I don't think Tom and I believe you right now. Like, are you being serious?
Tom, go to my question.
Okay. All right.
I'm so confused.
Yeah. You're agreeing that the Supreme Court is not reflective of the demographic of the United States.
Yeah, that's obvious.
Okay.
It's not.
All right. Okay. We're moving on. Ding, ding. Got points, Ryan. All right.
Yay. We agree on facts. I like that.
Ryan, would you agree that a business owner should focus on hiring employees based on skin color and sex, as those two attributes are the largest indicators of how much money an employee will make the company?
Right, so I'm a business owner, and I've hired white people, I've hired brown people, I've hired black people, and in doing so, I have learned as a business owner that experience in the field doesn't matter. Education doesn't matter. Whether somebody will show up to work on time doesn't matter. Whether they will work hard doesn't matter. The only thing that makes me money is the color of their skin and the gender twixt their nethers. Those are the only two things that I can figure as a business owner that make me any money. So that's all I base my hiring on now. When I hire people, if they don't look like me, they're going to be better employees. That is. I mean, you can agree with that, right, Ryan? That's my experience. Whether or not they show up to work, it doesn't matter. It's just what skin color they are.
So when did we turn this into the sarcasm podcast?
Seriously.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I don't think I can agree with your sarcastic,
why not?
Ironic point.
Are you racist? So you don't think that skin color should be a factor in hiring somebody?
Oh no, I absolutely do. But here's how we talk about this whenever we hire, because I've been on lots of hiring committees. Okay. We evaluate candidates based on their merits. Okay. And if it came down to two equally qualified candidates, exactly the same qualifications, like we really cannot tell the difference, then we would side with the minority candidate. But that is literally the way that we evaluate applications by university.
How often have you found two candidates that were absolutely identical except for skin color?
That's pretty rare, but sometimes you get candidates where, I mean, like obviously you're not going to get exactly the same. They didn't go to the same universities, right? But when it comes down to like, wow, these two are really close.
So now it's not the same. Now it's just close.
If they're really, really close, right? If they're really, really close, then we might lean towards the minority candidate for a variety of reasons, right? And those reasons actually get to your, I don't know if it was still sarcastic or not, agreement with my first point, which is actually that diversity does matter. We have a diverse student body.
It's everything.
But it's not everything. But we do have a very diverse student body. And having people who can teach them, literally, I just heard this morning in my morning news. When women teach engineering classes, the gender gap disappears between men and women in those classes. So when women teach the class, the gap between men and women on tests and grades actually disappears. Now, I'm not saying like that's the end all be all, but having somebody teaching your class who looks like you can actually be really beneficial for minority students. So
but that's not diversity.
That.
If they look like you, there's no diversity.
They get plenty of diversity. Trust me. Plenty of diversity at our university.
But you just made the argument that it's somebody that looks like you. You do a better job learning.
For minority students, I said specifically for minority students.
So diversity is not a good thing.
Diversity can be a good thing.
So it can.
I feel like there's a big trap that he's trying to set. Like he's trying to lay out this bear trap and just like catch him on his foot.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just trying to agree with you.
I'm going to take your question, Josh. I'm going to morph it a little bit. So Ryan, it sounds like you're agreeing that qualification is your top priority for
Absolutely.
electing, and then that you agree that should be the top priority.
But that's how we make all of our decisions. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So
Weird.
I know, Josh, I'm going to take that as you agree with Josh's question, even though Josh's question was different. It was quite that way. All right, I'm going to move on. Ding, ding. Got 2 yeses here. So, Josh, can we agree that Biden nominated a Black woman to fulfill his campaign promise?
It's pretty straightforward here. I'm literally going with my first two with just facts. So Biden made a campaign promise that helped him appeal to Black voters and female voters. And I think hopefully Josh is like, yes, that's why he did that. He may personally want a Black female justice. I don't know if that's true or not, right? But politicians make promises to appeal to voters. That we do know. Now he is fulfilling his campaign promise. And I don't think there's a problem with politicians fulfilling campaign promises, and in fact, I think that's a good thing for politicians to do when they make promises, is try and fulfill them. So can we agree that Biden made this promise and now he's just trying to fulfill a campaign promise?
Absolutely. Because
okay.
He's so good about keeping his word on things like this. He's top notch on this stuff.
Who brought the sarcastic Josh tonight?
What are you talking about? I'm agreeing with you. Of course. This is my second point.
I'm waiting for point 3 where he's just going to pull the rug out and be like, ha, I got you.
Josh, Ryan's doing those things where he's priming it with very factual statements here, right?
No, this is my second point. It really is.
So, but Biden, yes, Biden did say that in his campaign, right? That
yes,
he was like, I'm going to get a Black woman.
I'll even give a little more background. So go ahead and ask my question,
all right.
Tom. And
okay. Ryan, do you agree that blocking the nomination of a Black woman as the first Supreme Court justice would be blatantly racist?
So, do you think it would before I dig into this?
No, I think context always matters, right? So if the candidate was not qualified,
clearly,
But if
right, if it was blatantly obvious that this person was not qualified. No, okay. I'll give an illustration. Here in Florida, my governor, Ron DeSantis, tried to appoint a Hispanic woman to our Supreme Court in Florida Supreme Court, and she had no qualifications. She had never been a judge. She had never, I think she had practiced law for 1 year and then had left the law profession. And he tried to appoint her, and everybody was up in arms, including the Senate, right? Which is all Republicans. They're like, no, this makes no sense. You can't do this. And of course he wanted to be but I'm appointing a Hispanic woman to the Supreme Court.
Because Republicans don't do that. They don't do that kind of stuff.
But everybody was everybody, including Hispanic women, are but she's not qualified.
Yeah.
So if you had somebody who was not qualified just because she's a Black woman, I don't think it's racist to say you're not qualified.
Yeah, that's now, just pandering,
qualified,
right?
Yes.
Horrible pandering.
Now, yes. Now, if she's qualified, which this judge is absolutely qualified. This candidate, there's no question, right? She sat on 3 different courts. She's got the bona fides to do this. So if they said, no, you're a Black woman, and that's why we're not going to select you, that's clearly racist or sexist or whatever, the
he's just pandering
is.
Because Republicans don't ever put minorities in these seats.
That's Absolutely. Not entirely true. Clarence Thomas was put on by a conservative.
Okay, let me I'll give you a little more background on Biden. So it was during the primaries, February 2020. He had just lost 2 of the Democratic primaries, so he went to South Carolina, and that's where he made this promise. He said, I'm looking forward to making sure there's a Black woman on the Supreme Court to make sure we, in fact, get everyone represented. Great, right? That's because there's a lot of Black people in South Carolina. He's obviously not pandering, right?
Oh, he's totally pandering. I said Biden, that with my point.
No,
he's pandering.
No, how dare you? How dare you say Biden would pander? How dare you?
I said that in my point.
Shame on you. Biden doesn't pander.
What is going on tonight? This is the weirdest. It's
disgusting.
Josh is to the left of me tonight.
Too many drinks.
Biden doesn't pander. So he's obviously not pandering when he makes that promise.
I wanted to ask Josh what he's drinking, because I'm drinking kombucha. If there's any better illustration of left and right. I'm
Yeah.
drinking kombucha, and Josh is drinking what? An energy drink?
Monster.
I need it by the end of the day to be able to function, because we do this so late at night. We should do this at like 11 in the morning. We probably have better conversations. So he made that promise in 2020, right?
Yes.
I'm looking forward to making sure there's a black woman on the Supreme Court to make sure, in fact, everyone gets represented. And this doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because back when
Josh, sorry, can I interrupt? I think so. Let me, Ryan, you're saying obviously if the person wasn't qualified, you could say, well, they're not qualified. But
right.
like, can we? I'm gonna kind of like an additional layer to this question is like, can we agree that anyone I'm betting that anyone who votes against and the candidate is right now that's being vetted is I keep
Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Ketanji Brown Jackson. I keep saying I can't pronounce that first name. But is that someone will accuse them of racism if they vote against it?
They already have.
Right. Yes.
They've already
we know this will happen.
They've already accused the obviously racist Republicans of racism for asking hard questions and stuff. But what I was getting
Some of
at
those questions weren't really hard. They were pretty racist, but that's fine.
Of course they were, obviously, because she's black. Obviously they're racist because the Republicans can't ask questions about qualifications. They're just
no.
They're just racist.
Come on, Josh, don't go that extreme.
So what I was getting at is back when George W. Bush was president, he nominated Janice Rogers Brown for the Supreme Court. And Joe Biden said, President Joe Biden had a chance to get a black woman on the Supreme Court, but he filibustered a vote twice during former President George W. Bush's administration to block Janice Rogers Brown from being seated. So she would have been the first black woman on the Supreme Court, but obviously it's not racism when Joe Biden filibusters her, it was unheard of at the time to filibuster a Supreme Court candidate. But obviously it's not racism when he does it, for reasons. But when the Republicans do it now, racism, right? You have to agree with that. It's obviously racism.
What is your point tonight? Like, I'm not going to agree with this.
Why not?
I already said, like, literally my second point was Joe Biden is pandering, right? He did this for political
Joe Biden
reasons.
Doesn't pander. I can't believe that you would impugn the honor and dignity of the president.
I will impugn the honor and dignity of every politician because they all do this, Josh. Every one of them. Pick your side. I don't care. Even independents. Well, actually, maybe that's the exception, right? What's his name from Vermont? Bernie Sanders. I don't think he panders much, right?
No, he actually does.
He probably does, but he's probably the least likely because he's just going to call it like it is. But everybody else, they all pander. This is what they do. So
I'm going to take an agreement on this, but I kind of like morph that question to say like people are going to accuse anyone who doesn't vote for Ketanji Jackson Brown as racist, right? It seemed like I thought we got agreement from that.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that, right? I don't think everybody's going to accuse them. It's Republicans being Republicans, right? So they're not going to approve a candidate, not because she's black or female. It's because she's being appointed by a Democratic president, which more than likely means that person has leanings, right? Sure, absolutely,
is aligned, right? And I mean, that's we all know this, right?
Yes,
well,
this is the way the game plays. It's just stupid.
The other thing to note there is Biden made this promise to. He thinks it's important to get a black woman appointed. It's past time, right? He said that, and everybody needs to be represented, but not if she has the wrong
political leanings. That's fair. That's a fair point.
He filibustered Janice Rogers Brown twice.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Your point. That makes sense, right? He's like, as long as she's liberal, he's good with having a black woman on the Supreme Court. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Mm-hmm. And
I don't know how it could have been more clear. I mean,
I think all of us, like two of us are really confused so far, and all of our listeners are going to be absolutely befuddled at Josh's approach tonight.
All right.
What are you talking about? I'm just finding
Right.
common ground.
Ryan's third question for Josh. Can we agree that the demographics of the Supreme Court should be reflective of the U.S. population?
Okay. So my first two were just like straight up facts, which I'm glad that we can agree on facts. That's nice. This one is an opinion, right? So I'm kind of pushing this forward. And I'm giving examples. I don't necessarily think that you're going to agree with everything, but let's go for it, right? If we had a Supreme Court that reflected the demographics of the US, here is roughly how it would look. 4 of the justices would be male, 4 of the justices would be female, and 1 would be queer or non-binary. Okay. 1 to 2 justices should be Black, 2 justices should be Hispanic, 1 should be Asian, 1 should be Native American, and 3 could be white. Religiously, 1 could be Catholic, 4 could be Protestant, 3 could be non-religious, and 1 can be some minority religion. Politically, 2 should be to the left, 2 should be to the right, and 5 should be moderates.
Right. We'll never find a
which will never
moderate.
happen. Which will never happen, right?
Sorry, how many did you say should be Black?
It's just 1 to 2. If we're going off the demographics of the U.S. population, it's like 14% Black, which means 1 to 2 would be Black. Right. So if we are going straight off of like, let's represent the U.S. population, that's roughly what the Supreme Court would look like. We're going to
find this makeup and we're going to get them appointed.
Okay. Now, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I'm just saying, like, wouldn't it be nice if our courts and our legal system actually reflected the U.S. population? So my question is, wouldn't that be nice? Like, wouldn't it be good if the Supreme Court was actually reflective of the U.S. population?
Obviously, and how could it be? How could it be that hard to find, a Black queer woman that's Hindu or something, right? that's also qualified. That couldn't be that hard.
Yeah. Well, no. Qualifications. You're like, well, you're not qualified. Okay, but you fit everything else.
But you check all of the intersectional boxes, so you're good. And you flunked out of law school. That's okay. Doesn't matter. So I absolutely agree, because
oh my gosh,
if you have a Black person there, obviously he's going to be representative of all Black people.
Nope.
Donald Trump is white. So when he was president, he was representative of all white people, right? You agree with that, right?
Oh, yep. But we're going straight satire now, right? So it's just the satire podcast tonight?
I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, I am totally on your side here. Okay, because it makes perfect sense to me that if the person is Catholic, then they're representative of all Catholics, right? That's your logic that you're throwing at me. Because of the way a person looks, then everybody that looks like them, they're representative of everybody that looks like them, right? I'm following your logic, right? And because they have their own beliefs, and Ketanji Brown, she was asked, it was by what's his bucket? I can't remember his name. If her religion, she's Protestant, she said, if that would affect any of her cases, and she said, obviously not. My personal beliefs don't matter. As a judge, my job is to interpret the law and take the facts and not take my own personal opinions into it. And that's been a big problem with nominees in the Supreme Court. Is, are you an activist that's going to try to make law, or are you going to do your job and just interpret law? Because judges are just supposed to interpret law. It falls under the purview of the Congress to make law, right? Mm-hmm. So that is a sticking point with a lot of people when you have these activist judges that are trying to make law and push laws that they want for personal reasons. But no, to your question, I'm 100% on board. We should go out and a person's appearance should qualify them for the Supreme Court more than their experience or qualifications, because like
absurd. This is really the point that you're trying to make tonight. We have plenty of very qualified individuals who could reflect better the population of the United States. That's the point, right? Do we really need 5 white guys? Where are they? They're filling the seats at Harvard Law School and Columbia Law School and Yale Law School. They're all over the place.
Okay, well, I agree. Let's get them in there. We got to be able to find a Muslim, short person that's Asian, right?
Short
It
person,
should be so easy because the way a person looks is representative of everybody else that looks the other way.
I'm going to go with that. You do not agree with that final point. And then we're going to move on to Josh's final question for Ryan. Ryan, would you agree that it is absolutely necessary that we appoint a Black woman to the Supreme Court, even if we aren't exactly sure what a Black woman is? No, you're gonna have to give some explanation here.
Roll the video.
Roll the video at this point. Yeah.
All
right. We got some video. I'm rolling. Sharing my screen. Give me 1 second to make sure you guys can hear the audio. And
this is the Senate confirmation hearing that just happened.
All right, here we go.
Still happening.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition?
Mm-hmm.
No,
Yeah,
I can't.
you can't?
Not in
Okay.
this context.
So you
I'm not a
believe the
biologist.
meaning of the word woman is so unclear and controversial that you can't give me a definition?
Senator, in my work as a judge, what I do is I address disputes. If there's a dispute about a definition, people make arguments, and I look at the
All right.
law and I decide. So I'm not.
The fact that you can't give me a straight answer about something as fundamental as what a woman is underscores the dangers of the kind of progressive education that we are hearing about.
Okay.
oh my stupid
that's
freaking
so
question.
Very
Stupid
That is
question.
idiotic. That is idiotic, is what that is.
Because Ketanji Brown doesn't know what a woman is.
No, she
I mean,
gave a very
this-
reasonable response. She said, "What's the
You-
context?" My job isn't to define what a woman is; it's to resolve disputes. That's literally the job of a judge. Judges just resolve disputes. So she was
can't give
basically
a
saying-
definition. She was asked for a definition of a woman
On
and
the
she
basis
said,
of
no,
what?
I can't.
And that's
need a
actually
basis?
that's particularly complicated because is she asking about gender or is she asking about sex?
right.
Because those are actually
Do
not
you-
the same thing.
Do you need to be a biologist to define what a woman is?
No, you don't need to be a biologist to define what a woman is, but I don't know what Senator Blackburn was asking. Was she asking gender or was she asking sex, and in what context?
She's asking for
It sounds like
any.
a stupid gotcha question is what it was. That's
She's-
what it was a
She's
stupid
asking for
freaking gotcha
any.
question.
See, you're so mad because you see the logical fallacy that is our, because I'm a liberal, our reasoning. Okay, you see the logical fallacy for what it is because she can't even define what a woman is. It's a simple question. Define what a woman is. You don't need a context
Josh,
for
you
that
define
simple
it.
question.
You define it. What is a woman?
I can't right now. Give me 20 minutes and I'll define it. But right now it's undefinable. Okay, you
It's
can't define
undefined.
because everybody has their own definition. And how dare you?
That's not what
put
she
that
was
on me.
saying. This is so absurd.
Yeah.
It's just
Nope.
absolutely asinine.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Dumb.
No,
It's
I
like
mean-
dumb. It's not
No,
even
it's what I'm-
funny. It's dumb.
You're so mad because you know it's true. So I agree. We absolutely need a Black woman on the Supreme Court. But
But we can't define what it is.
if the
Because we
Honorable
can't define
Ketanji
race
Brown
and we can't
Jackson
define woman.
doesn't know what a Black woman is she a Black woman?
I don't know.
Okay, that's
think
the
we should
problem.
just-
I'm actually kind of starting to panic because
Yeah,
if she's
'cause
not
we
a Black
don't see
woman, then
race.
what? Well, what are we?
None of
what
us
are we
see
gonna
race, right?
Because
Oh
we
my
need a
gosh.
Black woman, but we don't know what a woman is. So
And
how do we
race is
get
a
one?
social construct. So
No,
I think we're screwed.
Well,
oh my gosh.
you're so
it-
mad. I love it.
Mad? It's so dumb. I can't even get mad about it, Josh. Like, this is
I
so
agree.
dumb.
It
It's
is
such a
no,
dumb.
dumb
well,
idea.
So-
I mean, I get the point that they're getting at, and it's, right. It's like she's going to be making and passing legislation, or making verdicts that will affect women, right? And however that's
Presumably.
defined, right? Exactly. And how is that defined? And things that might protect women or enable women, but we have muddled definition of what that is. But that's not really tangential to this question, right? Of like this hearing of whether we have.
It absolutely is because the demand is that we have a Black woman on the Supreme Court to represent black people and women, as Ryan just espoused. But if we don't even know what a woman is, do we even know what black people are?
No, it's a social construct.
So
is gender.
why do we
Mostly.
need them on the Supreme Court to be representative of people if we don't even know what they are?
I think we should have 9 straight white guys.
Ryan,
all extreme conservatives. I think that's who we should have on the Supreme Court, Josh. But we don't know what man is, and we don't know what conservative is, and we don't know what white is. So
ask me in 10 minutes what those are, and I'll tell you.
I think we should just flip coins because we can't determine anything at this point because nothing is true. There is no reality, and podcast is over.
Yeah. Who are we? I'm going to go with a no on that final question as well. So we got 2 yeses from both of you on both sides. And then the final questions were failures. So sorry, guys, no points awarded on the final questions, which I would say is like kind of the double Jeopardy round. But anyway, all right. So that was interesting tonight. With an interesting angle, Josh.
Yeah.
All right, we want to do your arguments, and then I'll do Tommy's take, or do you want to do Tommy's take first? I'll let you choose.
I'll leave it up to Ryan since I pissed him off tonight.
I'd like Josh's final argument because I'm still so confused because he pretended to be something he's not tonight. So and then I guess I can respond to that maybe, and then we can get Tommy's take.
Yeah. So I apologize to anybody that was confused by this. I hope that you found it as funny as I did, because the whole liberal take on it is so ridiculous to me. And Ryan admitted it and then backed up, and then admitted it and backed up. Just because you're black doesn't mean you're representative of other black people. Just because you're black doesn't mean that you've had the black experience, which I hear people talk about, but it's indefinable, right? Look at Barack Obama. He was raised by rich white bankers, but he knows what it is to be black. What does that even mean? That's indefinable. Ryan, do you know what it is to be white? Who is the white guy that sets the standard for the white experience? I don't know. Is it Donald Trump? Is it you? It's such a weird thing. And that's the problem. That's my whole problem with this cult of intersectionality that the left is taking us down. None of it's really definable. You can't what's the black experience? Does President Obama represent all black people? Does if we had a gay Supreme Court justice, would they be representative of gay people? It's such a bizarre demand that we have a black woman on there because she's going to be representative of all black women. What if the black woman's conservative? Then she's probably not representative of her at all. Why are we looking at this color of somebody's skin to dictate anything? Because as Ryan said, and I agree, it's a social construct. Right? Race is a social construct. The color of somebody's skin means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. It makes no sense to me that we're doing this. I found an interesting quote from Sonia Sotomayor. She asked if she brought a Latina perspective to the Supreme Court. Sotomayor asked, what is a Latina perspective? Which I love. And I'm not a fan of her politics, noting that Latinos come from different economic backgrounds, have different religious traditions and life experiences. What you got is Sonia Sotomayor, she said. What Sonia Sotomayor is not just a Latina. She then ran down a list of descriptors that applied to her. Nuyorican Catholic, raised by a single mom with an annoying younger brother, to Ivy League, former prosecutor, former corporate defender for Fortune 500 companies, district court judge, and person. I am an amalgam, Sotomayor said. I love that. I'm not a fan of Sotomayor, but I love that. She recognizes that she is not just representative of all Latinas or all women, because those are two attributes ascribed to her. She is an amalgam of all these different experiences, and her color is not what defines her. I absolutely take my hat off to her, and I brought in a leftist Supreme Court judge because, how are you going to disagree with that, right? So that's why I brought in this absurdio reductum whole thing that I did tonight. It was absurd, and I apologize for that. But hopefully you can see why the liberal argument is so absurd. Okay, it makes no sense to me that the Supreme Ryan's argument that the Supreme Court should be, religiously defined by, the demographics, and color defined by demographic. I mean, none of that makes any sense, bro, because the judge, as Ketanji Brown rightfully said in the confirmation hearing, is my personal beliefs shouldn't have any effect on my decisions as a judge. Okay. And she's right to do so. That's the proper place of a judge, not to be an activist, not to bring their own personal beliefs or vendettas into the courtroom, but to just interpret the law fairly. That's what judges are supposed to do. So to make these crazy demands that a judge must be black and woman, give me the best person for the job. That's all I care about. And if you want to call me racist for it, call me racist. But as a business owner, I hire people based on, are you going to work hard and show up on time? That's all I care about. I'll teach you everything else. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what sex you are. Are you going to make me money? Cool. If that makes me racist, I guess I'm a racist.
All right. Ryan.
Interesting. So if I'm understanding Josh's point, tonight he played pretty consistently the argumentum ad absurdum, which is a logical fallacy, right? So it's just making absurd arguments the whole night. But that's fine. I get the point. The point
they're
is
not absurd arguments. They were left arguments.
The point is that no one individual represents all people who look like them. Okay, and certainly I will concede that point. I think that is a totally fair point, and that props to you for bringing in Sonia Sotomayor, who was like, yeah, what is a Latino perspective? She's absolutely right, because there's a lot of diversity there. So I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I think that's a totally valid point. That said, okay, I do think minority voices, and I'm not saying one person represents all minorities, okay? I'm saying minority voices do matter. And I think you agree with this.
Sure.
When Democrats are in power, do you want no Republicans to be heard, to be recognized, to have any say in anything, where it is complete and absolute oppression of the minority? I don't think anybody wants that. So the argument...
You're just describing democracy.
Right, exactly. So democracy should be reflective of the population. And for most of the history of the Supreme Court, it has not been reflective of the population. Okay, so that's all my point is. I'm not saying that we're ever going to get an exact representation. I don't think we can put quotas in on the Supreme Court. I think that's absurd. That said, there are plenty of very well qualified people who are not white men. Okay, and my rationale for saying that is I think other people bring important perspectives that white men don't bring. You said, who represents the experience of white men? How do we know that we're white and all of this? We do experience, and I know conservatives hate this language, right? But we do experience privilege. We experience a privilege a lot. What was the one that we just saw? The director of Black Panther. Did you catch this? What happened to him? He was pulling money out of his bank account, a corporate account, to pay one of his employees, and he got arrested. Okay, because he was wearing a mask. He couldn't talk through the mask, so he handed the teller a note saying, "I need this much money out of my account."
He's like, ah.
Yeah, and he was a black guy, right? He's a black director.
That's funny.
He got arrested and taken out, like in handcuffs,
because
put in a
he's
cop
black.
car.
Because white people
Josh,
rob banks.
If you did that, if you went into a bank wearing a mask and just kind of said to him, "I'm sorry, my voice is a little soft. Here's a note."
You just instantly
you
ascribe
really
it to
think,
racism.
Dude, hold on.
You don't know that it's racist. You don't.
Oh,
you
come
just
on.
describe it.
Did the
Come
note say?
on.
Did the note say I need $20,000 right now? And he's like,
No.
and they're like, I
Yes.
just wanted to withdraw $20,000.
He was literally handing the paperwork of like, I filled everything out. I just need the money. Why did he get arrested? And he's the director of Black Panther. The dude's loaded. He's got plenty of money. Okay. Why did that happen in a bank? And why do we not hear about this happening to white guys all the time?
Oh my gosh.
Okay. I get your point about like
racism.
Race is a social construct. I'm certainly going to advocate for that because biologically it's kind of not very meaningful, right? But to say race doesn't matter when we We have people killing people because they're black. Like this literally just happened in Georgia, and they were convicted of it. Okay.
Good. It's illegal.
3 guys. It is illegal. They shouldn't have killed anybody, but they killed him because he was black. And they were convicted of that twice. Okay.
Well,
so to say race doesn't matter.
Wait, the 3 guys that chased the jogger down?
Yes, and shot him.
Call.
Oh.
No.
Okay, got
But,
it.
see, you described that to race. But maybe they were racist, but they didn't kill him because he was black. They killed him because they thought he was robbing their neighborhood. That's why they killed him.
All the while dropping the N-word and saying that we're going to go kill a black guy.
Okay, sure. They're probably racist. But the way you
There's
frame
no
that,
probably about it. Everything about that was racist.
But the way you frame that is they killed him because he was black. No, they killed him because they thought he was robbing the neighborhood. Okay, I'm not excusing what they did, but for you to just paint this racist brush, you have to admit what the Black Panther director did was weird. Okay, he had a mask on so nobody can see his face, and he's handing a note to the teller. Those are some red flags. That's really not smart. Okay, you can logically think that through.
Let's
so
do an
for you
experiment.
to just say no.
All three of us tomorrow, wear a mask and go withdraw $100 from a bank and see if they are trying to arrest any of us.
Oh my gosh, you have to admit it's a weird thing to do. Hand a note to a teller and not say anything.
Hand the paperwork. It wasn't a note. It was literally the paperwork for a withdrawal.
Still.
We all know how to fill out a withdrawal slip. He handed her a withdrawal slip.
She just must be racist. No other explanation for it.
All right, Ryan. Anything else?
I'm not winning. Like it's fine, right? Josh is adamant on his point here tonight that we cannot use race. That ultimately what matters is qualifications and diversity be damned. And I just can't get behind that, right? I think diversity actually does matter. And there's actually lots of empirical evidence to suggest he was being facetious in that very first point that like diversity is the only thing that matters. It turns out diverse groups are actually really good at designing things and getting things done and bringing better perspectives. And you actually get a better product when you have diverse groups. That's why lots of people are trying to hire diverse employees, is because you actually do a better job. Lots of empirical evidence to support this. So to just make an argumentum ad absurdum about this of like race, diversity doesn't matter at all. We should just go with qualifications.
Did I make that argument?
I can't get behind that.
Did I make that argument?
That was basically your whole argument tonight is like, let's just go with qualifications. End of story. And if we do that, then we're going to get
putting words in my mouth.
The most highly
I've
rated.
Pissed you off. So now you're taking shots because you didn't like my approach tonight, which was funny.
Well, do you want to clarify, Josh?
There are certain endeavors where having diverse viewpoints would be beneficial, but it's not. That's going to be the exception to the rule rather than the rule. Like my silly depiction of building an airplane with engineers. The best engineers are going to build the best airplane, and their skin color is not going to matter. But there are
having diversity among your engineers is actually going to matter. So if you have a 6'7" engineer and a really short one, and that's just literally based on size, they're going to be like, oh, you know what? That actually matters, right?
Sure.
And that's just a really simple example of diversity.
That I agree with. That's what I'm trying to get at. Okay.
Point.
So my problem with it is when you make that claim based on skin color. When I say skin color doesn't matter when it comes to diversity, again, I gave the example of Barack Obama, right? Because everybody's saying he's so great because he's black, but he had a more wide experience. You could argue if that's such a thing, because he was raised by rich white bankers. So to say that he's going to bring a black perspective into a creative enterprise and that's going to make the group better, that's a ridiculous argument, because what is that? So I'm not saying that different viewpoints are not good. I 100% agree with that. My problem is to say that skin color is the deciding factor. That makes absolutely no sense at all to me.
But can skin color be a factor?
No, your experience can be a factor. Go back to what Sonia Sotomayor said. Mm-hmm. Okay, she had a problem with just saying, well, you're a Latina. That gives you a rich perspective. Well, no, her upbringing, being raised coming out of poverty, those kind of things are what brings perspective.
Do you think women experience discrimination in the United States? And do you think racial minorities experience discrimination in the United States?
How did I know you were going there? Playing the race on the black card, because that gives them a unique perspective.
Will you answer those questions?
Sure. We've already discussed both of them.
Do you think they experienced discrimination?
All women?
No, women in general. I didn't say all women because I would never say that.
You just put the knife in the
Josh. I'm a
in the heart of your
sociologist.
own.
We never go with all. We never go with all.
Okay.
It's a generalization.
So you're proving what I'm getting at. Take the person for their amalgam, as Sonia Sotomayor said.
So you're not going to answer
just
the
saying,
question.
I already did. Yeah, sure. Some women experience whatever. Some minorities experience whatever. Some do, not all. That's what I'm getting at. So just to put a black woman on the Supreme Court and says she represents all black women and all black women have a unique perspective. What?
All right.
Again, I always go back to Martin Luther King Jr., his most famous speech when he said, I have a dream that people will be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Because I care about your experiences. Just because you are a certain gender or a certain race or a certain height doesn't mean you have the same experiences as somebody of those same characteristics. It really means nothing. I care what your experiences are and what you're bringing to the table. Again, this goes back to the whole foundation of the West, the imperative of the individual. That's what we should be caring about. That's what our law, that's what Western common law is set up to protect, is the primacy of the individual, not these broad brush groups, because that means nothing. Does that make any sense to you? I know it makes sense to everybody else, but it's so weird that liberals. Sorry, go, Tom.
Thanks for your closing arguments, Ryan.
Yeah, go, Tom. Give us Tommy's take. I'm making some notes.
All right, so there's one thing, Ryan.
Nope. Tom froze for a second. You cut out, Tom. Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, you're
Okay. Sorry. Ryan brought up something that I thought was interesting, was that the females in engineering is that when they're teaching the class that they basically help both women and men succeed equally. So my experience with that has basically been that is true. We had female engineers on our teams, and my experience was that they were actually really great at mentoring new engineers, and they really encouraged other women, and I think and helped other women, and they did seem like they were better at that. They're more conscientious of needs and more keyed into that. And so there are differences, right? They've got some strength. They have different strengths. Now, what's interesting is some of the questions, right? Like, are they reflective? Are we reflective of? Should the Supreme Court be reflective? That's like the same thing that you would ask of Congress, right? Should it be reflective of the demographic? And you could say those are geographic, right? So in a sense, you pull from those people, but at the same time, what is Congress? That's like still predominantly male, white, right? Rich, and you have like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She was a bartender, right? And I'm like, well, okay, should we have a waiter? Should we have a trucker? Should we have a criminal, right? To like make sure we represent every, and I don't know if I want that, right?
I think they all are criminals, Tom. Like, let's just.
Yeah, we'll
agree on that. We will all agree on that.
That's probably true. But I kind of want the best and brightest going to Washington, D.C., or hopefully at least the best.
Well, the argument you would make there, if I can just jump in, is that they wouldn't be representative of jobs, but they would be representative demographically of the beliefs and the values of their constituents. That's the argument you make there. That's how they're represented. That's the variety that we're putting into Congress, and it has nothing to do with skin color or money, or it does have something to do with money. The system's flawed, but that's the argument you'd make there, right? And I think you would agree with that. That's the idea behind it.
Totally. But I'm just saying, I don't think that's even possible. And secondly, I don't think, I don't know if that's what I want. Right. And I'm trying to say this.
Oh, he broke up again.
Your internet's terrible tonight.
Yeah. Not back yet. Did we lose him entirely? Oh, now you're back. Okay.
I'm in like the corner of the house here. So I think it's bad, it's kind of spotty. But I guess what I'm saying is like, it's not possible to get that diversity. And I don't think they're that representation. And I don't think like, I think in lieu of not being able to do that, you default to qualifications, right? Which I think is, I think the second thing is, are they representative of the diversity that you're trying to, of their identity that you're trying to bring? And I just don't think you can do that either. Because it was funny that Josh brought up Obama, because I was thinking the same thing. Because I had someone that brings this point that like when Trump was in office, people would say, "Oh, our country's so racist," and you're like, "Well, we just had a black president like just a few years ago. Shouldn't we not be racist, right? Shouldn't we have fixed all that? Shouldn't we not be racist? Were we not racist then, right? Or we're racist now?" Like, it was like, he doesn't represent, everything, right? Obama didn't, right? And just as Trump, we didn't all turn white people, right? When we elected Trump. So I don't think they're ever always representative. I think that's also impossible. So, and then my last thought was something interesting, was that someone brought up this point that like, if you say, I'm going to hire all women on my engineering team, like we're only hiring women for engineers because we want to be like, we want to give them a chance. We're going to give them
cut out again.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Right. Sorry. So this idea was like, if you only hire all women, right, to like help women on your engineering team, you will inevitably hire less qualified women, because there are only so many women in the pool. And therefore, if you grab only women, you are automatically getting a less qualified pool of candidates that you're going to be able to get. And so that there's also a danger there inherently of like, well, we're certain identities first, and then we go for qualifications. I think you're watering down your pool of qualifications. So it's tough. So like, yeah, those ones, it's so hard to have them representative of, have them be, to have a and is representative. It says my internet is unstable.
Yeah, we're seeing that.
Yeah,
You had like all these good points, and right as you get to the climax,
the zinger.
Okay, so let me just throw something out there. There are a number of countries now.
Wait, is this your closing argument?
No. It's a
discussion.
It's a discussion. It's a question. It's not a closing argument. There are a number of countries around the world now that have gender quotas in their parliament or Congress or whatever it is, their body, right? Mm-hmm. Usually that quota is around 30%. So it's not 50%. It's not above 50%. It's 30%. Why are they doing that? And do you think that's a good thing?
No.
Tom's frozen. I think he might have dropped out.
I'm here.
Oh.
No. You're just staring at me like I'm...
His face was just frozen in one position. It was like creepy.
Oh, look, I can think of a lot of people that don't look anything like me, or, one of my favorite politicians is Gabby, oh my gosh, what's her name? Everybody's calling for her to be arrested right now.
The Hawaiian one?
Yeah.
Giffords?
Tulsi.
Yeah.
Tulsi
Gabbard.
Gabbard.
Yeah.
Space on her. Okay, she's a moderate liberal woman, and she's one of my favorite politicians. She's more representative of me than Trump or Bernie Sanders, and they look like me, and they have the same package between their legs, right? Well, I guess Trump's is kind of weird. That was a big thing we all had to talk about.
Toadstool shaped, apparently.
Yeah. So I just don't understand this logic that I need, that my wife needs a woman, a blonde woman in Congress to represent her. That's not representative of her values. That I want my.
But I don't think that's the point, Josh. I think the point is.
I think it is.
Is your wife's experience in life different from your experience on the basis of her gender?
Sure, but
Yeah,
why?
I think that's the whole extent of it. That's it. That's the extent of the argument is women have a different experience in life. And if we just say, let's get a whole bunch of women, so it's not one woman who represents all women, it's let's get a whole bunch of women. And then their perspective can be represented, broadly speaking. Okay. I think that's the point of it. So I'm not necessarily saying I want a quota. I'm saying I see the logic behind a quota. They're not setting it at 50%. They're not saying it has to be exactly half. They're saying, let's get some representation by people who have a different life experience than men. That's it. That's the point.
But it doesn't guarantee that they're going to be representative of any woman just because they're women. It doesn't guarantee that. So I get your point. Maybe it's more likely that they will. But again, why are you electing a politician? They're to represent your values, and you don't need to have the same gender. It would be
interesting to see the race where it was right on the line of the 30%, right? And they'd be like, no, it has to be a woman, right? Is that? It'd be interesting to see if there was a scenario where that would happen. We're like this, okay, we have this spot, but it has to be a woman because we're right on the threshold.
Right. Yeah.
Well, they do it in other areas. They do it like companies do that. We have to have so many women chairmen on the board. There's a reason that men run all these big companies. It's because these are crazy alpha men that's all they care about and that's all they do. So I'm
not going to agree with that.
No.
I mean,
we've talked about that. But
sure, it's basically an old boys club, right? It's social networks. It's who you know, and
of course,
when you've got entrenched power interests, then that's the way it's going to be. And there's tons of evidence suggesting that women get hired to be CEOs when the company is about to tank.
Isn't GM? Is it General Motors? Yeah, it's got the lady, and I think the company's like not doing well.
Yeah, because obviously in capitalism, you don't care about making money. You just care about being in the boys club. I mean, that argument never flies in capitalism.
It's not what you know, it's who you know, Josh. Come on.
Fine. If you know a woman that can make you money, then why wouldn't you hire her, do business with her? So
how are you going to know her? That's the whole point.
Jeez.
She's not part of the club.
Yeah.
All right.
You make these claims, but there's nothing to back them up.
Oh, just, mountains of empirical evidence that sociologists publish all the time. Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in for another podcast, another episode of
this has to be the weirdest episode we've done. I don't even know that I want to listen to this one.
That was the funnest we've ever done.
It was one of our fastest for sure. So yeah, that was good. All right. Thanks everyone. We'll see you next time.
Josh, we may not always agree when it comes to politics, even though we're trying, but there is one thing we agree on. There is only one way to clean up after going to the bathroom, and that's with a Lux bidet.
I've been a proud owner of a Lux bidet for years. I have literally owned a Lux Neo 320 since 2013. That's the warm water model. Talk about happy, fun, poopy time. When I leave the bathroom, I know I'm clean and ready to talk politics in a civilized manner.
Exactly. Using a toilet without a bidet is about as uncivilized as it gets. Civil conversations demand civil hygiene practices.
And that is why our listeners should get themselves a Lux bidet.
And just to be clear, Lux is not supporting one side or the other in this podcast. They support civil conversations and clean butts.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Finding Common Battlegrounds. The music is by Ben Sound. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and not those of their employers. For more information or more episodes, you can find us at findingcommonbattlegrounds.com.
You really didn't know what I was doing? You never watched the Colbert Report?
No, I mean, the first one, I was like, okay, maybe he's being serious, but I don't think so. And then after that, I was like, what the fuck, Josh? Like, really? This is the angle you're taking? You're just going like,
yeah, and it was hilarious.
Argumentum ad absurdum.
And it worked because look how mad you got. And I warned Tom that buckle up. I almost warned Tom that you were going to get pissed because I knew it would piss you off for me to take it like this. I pointed out the logical inconsistencies of the liberal platform.
You
froze again, Tom.
Oh shoot! Am I back?
Yep.
Yeah, you are.
The list that you got of the Supreme Court, like how it would be divided if it was actually equated to representing America, was that something you made up, or is that something you found online?
I was just going off of basic demographics of the U.S. I mean, as a sociologist, we have to be aware of those things, right? So I know off the top of my head that 14 to 16% of the U.S. population is Black and around 20% is Hispanic. I'm
asking because I'm like, was there a movement to do? Is there like you founded up some website that's like, this is what we need for Supreme Court justice?
Okay, so answer me this: if so, we have Clarence Thomas, and if this chick, so how many? That'd be one justice that would need to be Black, right? So you would kick off
based on those numbers.
You would disqualify her?
No, I mean, I'm not saying like, let's put quotas. I'm saying if it was to be representative, it would look something like this, right? Yeah. So I wasn't saying like we have to have exact quotas. Yeah. So it would be 1 to 2 Black individuals.
But only 1 to 2. You couldn't have 3.
Oh, you could have 3? Like, I don't really care.
But then it's not representative.
Okay.
You're not making a logical,
Is 9 white men representative of the U.S. population, which is what the Supreme Court has been for the vast majority of the history of this country.
Yes, because you can have your skin color doesn't dictate your.
I like that you used the word "dick" there. 9 white men, dictate. Josh. White men.
Yeah, that doesn't dictate your values.
It doesn't dictate your values. But do we want women who have a different life experience to have any say in how laws are interpreted? I think we do. I think they would actually bring an important perspective. And does one woman represent all women? No. Point conceded, Josh. Your argument ad absurdum point is conceded. Okay.
Then it's not
one person. It is argument ad absurdum because that's all you did tonight is just kept saying one person doesn't represent all Black people. One person doesn't represent all white people.
You just agreed with it. So therefore
I know I agree with it, but it's an absurd argument. Like no one. Okay, let's make it this way. It's a straw man. Who made that argument? Who went out there and was like, I, the one white male, represent all white men.
Okay, that is actually a better way to phrase your.
It's a straw man argument.
But it's really not, because that is essentially what Biden is saying by saying we need a Black woman on there. So Black women are represented.
No,
okay?
He's not.
So
saying
he's not
that.
saying all Black women are exactly going to do what she is, but
right.
I mean, I get.
He's
what
saying
you're
let's get some diversity in the court.
And I already conceded that some diversity may be good in some circumstances, but to make the argument that the liberals are making, saying we absolutely need this Black woman on the court because that'll bring a rich perspective. And I go back to the Sotomayor thing. People said because she's a Latina woman, she brings a rich perspective, a unique perspective. And she herself refuted that. Said, no, because of my experiences, I bring perspective.
Yeah.
And that's what it has to come back to, is the primacy of the individual. That's what the West is founded upon.
I was going to say, I think we're talking past each other because I actually think we agree more than we disagree on this. I agree with Sonia Sotomayor that she brings her perspective.
Yes.
My point there, though, and you already agreed to this, is that women in general, not all women, I'm not saying all women in general have a different life experience. Okay.
Sure.
Let's just say that that's true. So if we can get half of the Supreme Court to be women, then they're bringing a different life perspective. That's all we're saying.
Maybe.
You think that some women have a man's perspective on like what are you trying to say there?
That would actually be the liberal argument, because gender is just a social construct. So maybe they do. That should be the argument you're making right there. What perspective does Leah Thomas bring to the table? Is it a man's perspective or a woman's perspective?
Strangely, both or neither. Depends. Complicated.
Oh, the question I was going to ask was, what if Ketanji, like
Brown Jackson? Yeah,
Ketanji.
No, he broke up again. Tom, you are not allowed to sit in that corner of your house anymore.
No.
Now he's back. Okay, you're back now.
That was bad. What if she, like mid-hearing, decided she identified as a woman?
Who? Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Oh, sorry,
that she
identified as a man.
Oh, I was like, I think she does identify as a woman. I'm confused.
She couldn't even identify what a woman is.
Like-
so how's she going to do
Oh
that?
my gosh, Josh, that was such a dumb gotcha point.
It's not though. It's
It
germane.
totally is. It is
It's
not
not.
germane.
It absolutely is, because the left is so inconsistent with this argument. We demand that women are represented, but we don't know what a woman is, and we love women's rights, and the right are
But
misogynist.
It's
But we're
another
going to let
straw man. Like,
no,
can
it's
you
not,
find?
because
Can
Leah
you find
Thomas.
me
Leah Thomas just won. She's the fastest swimmer fastest female
in
swimmer
one of
America.
the 3 races that she swam? She
Okay,
won
great.
one of them. She
Okay,
lost
so-
2 of them.
Go talk to the girl that didn't medal because Leah Thomas took her medal, and see if it's important to her. Go talk to all of the other girls in the race that took their own pictures because they didn't want to race against her because they all knew they were going to lose because she's freaking 6'3" and she's built like a man because she's a man. Okay.
Then why
So you
didn't
say
she win
it's-
her other 2 races?
The theory is that she threw them just so there wouldn't be so much heat on her.
So we're
Because-
going conspiracy theory now.
These are
I
what the
love
other
it.
these are what some of her teammates said, because she's in some of her races she lapped the other women. Okay, so make whatever argument you want there, saying that it's not a big deal. It's obviously a big deal, and it's happening more and more. And your argument when we did the podcast about this,
Yeah,
is that
is it a big deal?
if it happens more, I'll concede it's a big deal. It's happening more and more, catching more and more headlines.
We've got one person right now.
No.
The one we talked about in that case, the Olympic weightlifter from New Zealand. How did she do in the Olympics?
So what? She sucked.
She didn't win, did she?
But she took other people's spots from going to the Olympics, and that's a huge deal.
She didn't win.
So what?
That was the point. That was my point all along, was if suddenly all of these transgender athletes are just clobbering all the women,
Which
then
a
we've
lot
got a
of them
serious.
are. You're not. I don't know
We've
if you're
got
not
one
seeing the
case right
headlines.
now. We've got
No, we have
one
Leah
case,
Thomas.
and Ron DeSantis
There-
is using this to pander to
Oh
his
my
base
gosh.
because they're
All right,
transphobes.
Maybe we need to revisit that one, because I've seen several. There was another swimmer that was coming in second to Leah Thomas in some races. There was several track people now that are doing it. It's happening more and more, and it's going to keep happening until we pass laws where it can't happen. But anyway,
See
back
that
to the point.
Utah's transgender
Your
sports
governor
law
just
got-
vetoed it.
Mhm,
Yeah, but the Congress is going to override him.
possibly. So
What a freaking milk toast.
it'll be interesting.
This is just pandering to a base. Trans people scare us. Run away. I don't understand it.
If my daughter's an athlete, if she has to start playing against boys, then we'll pull the team.
What's interesting is, so I coach a futsal league, and with Gideon, and they play. So when they play futsal, it's a little more casual. So they team them up with other teams, and so they do women. They play girls and they play boys, of course,
Mhm.
other boys. But usually the girls, they'll play 2 years older. Hudson was in this league as well, and she would play boys usually about 2 years younger, and it was usually an even matchup. When they did that way. And otherwise, and so Gideon had games where they beat the girls and they had games where they lost to the girls, right? And it was I was happy about it because it was like, okay, this is great. Like, I just want him to play someone
A
who
fair
is
game.
a fair game. But
That's all we care about in sports.
but it was interesting that you had to make an age. I mean, like, there would be no, the girls would have no chance if they were playing people their same age.
None whatsoever.
And that's interesting, right? There's just clearly such a clear difference, even in these younger kids' sports.
The Australian women's national team in soccer, in the last World Cup, leading up to the World Cup, they were scheduling matches against local teams to practice, so they could get their practicing in. They scheduled a match against a local boys club team, just a mediocre club team from the same city they were in. The boys were 14 years old. I think it was 12 to 14 years old. They beat the women 7-1. It's just a local 14-year-old boys club team against the best women in the country. It's so
I'm
clear.
gonna Google this. I don't know that
Go
I
for it.
believe you.
Google it. Promise that's the case.
Lose to 15-year-olds. Let's see.
Yep. I think it was 6-1 or 7-1.
7-0 to a team of 15-year-old boys.
There you go.
Anyway, well, I mean, Yeah. So that's funny, Ryan, because someone sent something out in Megan picked up in her Facebook that basically said, it was the same argument. They said, this has only happened in it's 4 transgenders in Utah.
Transgender individuals. You're going to get hammered for that. Yeah.
And there was only one where they beat the person.
Mm-hmm.
Like they won everything. And their argument was that, and they were saying there are 75,000 like high school athletes. And they're like, this isn't a big deal, right? They're saying like, I'm not even sure what they're arguing. They said, keep it in perspective or something like that. But
the problem is it's a big deal to the person that gets beat out for a spot.
Yeah.
Okay? The thing with Leah Thomas, I don't care if Leah Thomas wants to go race against women, but then you have the girl that she came in 5th, I guess. So she didn't trophy by 1 spot. She didn't get a medal or whatever it was. It's because Leah Thomas entered the race. Otherwise she would have got a medal. And she came out and said that, how can I not be mad about this? Because she was ranked like 400 in the nation when she was a man. Now she's ranked 1st because she's a woman. How would I not feel like she came in and screwed us all over? Okay. She's the person that I care about. I absolutely agree. It's not a huge widespread issue, but it's going to continue to be an issue. And how would you feel if your child is the one that's beat out for a spot that they've worked for their whole life? Because a man, and Ryan agreed that men have a biological advantage over women. Okay. We wouldn't have the NBA and the WNBA if it was fair. And all we care about in sports is fairness.
Well, the reason why I laughed is because like there's so much juicing and cheating. Like,
yeah, and everybody hates it. If you're cheating, we kick you out. Hey, in the UFC, if you cheat,
unless it's baseball.
Okay, so you have baseball, but baseball is actually dying because of that. Because it's not fair. We don't like cheaters. Okay, Lance Armstrong was everybody's hero until we found out
he was a cheater.
He was a cheater. We want fairness in sports. That's what makes it fun. Okay, in the NBA, when you have these super teams that just dominate, all the ratings go down for the whole league because everybody knows who's going to win. We want fairness. We want to see people rise to the occasion. Again? In the NBA, like a couple of years ago, the Golden State Warriors had a super team where they won 70 games. Kevin Durant went and played with Steph Curry. They dominated. Nobody had a chance. Nobody watched that year because you knew from day one who was going to win. So ratings
really?
So Golden State ratings went up because everybody's like, our team's going to win.
Yeah, this is going to be fun to watch us destroy everybody.
But the rest of the country, everybody's like, this is pointless. We're not watching.
Right. That's really interesting.
Because that's what people want in sports. We just want fairness. So your point where your boys were playing girls that were older than them, awesome. If my daughter's softball team boys don't play softball, but if they were playing boys that were a little younger than them, so they were on the same skill level. So because my daughter is a great athlete and she throws really hard. She plays dodgeball up at school, and there are a couple boys that single her out because they get so mad if she catches the ball or if she gets them out because she's a girl. She has to put up with this all the time. She comes home every day. Yeah, Dad, I got out so-and-so, and he was so pissed. And she loves it. She loves that kind of competition. But the boys get so worked up about it because they're embarrassed if they lose to a girl.
Yeah, totally. All the other friends are watching.
Because all of her friends, all of the other girls are terrible. They can't play dodgeball against the boys. But because that's all she does, she can compete.
This is so interesting. So I'm going through this mental exercise in my head of like, well, could we match everyone up just by how good they are so that boys can just play girls and everyone can play together? And then I'm like, oh no, that's why there would never be any boys on the boys high school or girls on the high school team. That's why that's why there's only boys on the NBA, right? We've already done this exercise. That's why we created a separate thing was a WNBA so they could play because they're clearly not as good. But then that's why I think people are upset about the transgender thing. It's like, okay, that all makes sense.
We gave them a space where they could compete fairly. And then we said, well, you know what? We want to be the best women. We're already the best men. We want to be the best women too. It's not fair to them. Yeah. And we covered this in the last podcast. The question is, where do we put the transgender people? Well, obviously we can't put them with the women because they have an unfair advantage. And even if they're not the best, they still have an advantage.
Well, but we talked about that. Can we remind us like the nuance? If somebody transitions really young, like pre-puberty, and they're taking, testosterone blockers, they're not going to develop the same way.
Yes,
and I think that's
they won't
the
develop
kind
the
of
same way,
issue
but they still have an advantage.
Well,
Men are built different than women.
But we don't know to what extent they would have an advantage.
But
right?
we know they would have an
so
advantage.
I don't know on this guy who just
Genetically,
won the
men are
swimming
different
thing.
than women.
Yes, but hormones matter a lot, Josh. Like, let's not just throw out hormones.
But not 100%. You want to throw out hormones.
But neither does genetics matter 100%. So that's precisely my point. So if somebody transitions earlier, it might be more complicated. That's all I'm saying. Is like, it can't just be like all transgender people, you don't get to play, or you get to play in your own league, you're out, screw you, right? Like, I don't think that's the right argument. That argument doesn't make sense.
Then how do you make the line of division?
They've tried to come up with things. I think this is just really messy, and I think it's going to be messy for years until somebody comes up with a good solution, because no one has a good solution right now.
I think this goes back to when we talked about this, because the Olympics had more stringent guidelines for what to be a woman or to compete as a woman or a man. You had to have
transitioned at a certain point, and you have to have a certain level of testosterone, and you have to be on testosterone blockers.
And then they flip-flopped and were like, okay, you just got to like identify, and you just got to do this. And it was really easy. And that's why there were so many women. And I honestly think you're right, Ryan. I think there's probably going to be like a pendulum here. There might be, because there's already backlash, right? We're feeling backlash. And I think we're going to swing. We're going to modify it and make it a little harder for them. Someone can't just like, oh, today I'm going to identify as a woman. I'm on the girls' soccer team. And
but where do you draw the line? Because the argument that you want to make here is, let's put them with comparable athletes, so it's fair.
Yes, I agree with that. I'm fairness. I'm all about fairness.
I'm pretty old and not as in good shape. Can I go play softball against 15-year-old girls? Is that okay? Can I identify?
They clobber you, Josh. I hope they clobber you.
But I mean, I would beat 15-year-old girls. Maybe 17-year-old girls would clobber me. Is that fair? Is that okay that I identify as a 17-year-old girl? Where do we draw the line here? Okay, the simple way to do this is how we've done it. Give the women a fair space to compete. Give the men a fair space to compete.
But we have an increasing percentage of the population who identify as transgender.
Let's find a place for them to compete without robbing women. Okay, that's the problem. I don't have a problem with them competing. Go compete. But if you're robbing women for Olympic berths or for scholarships or whatever, you can make the argument that it's not a big deal because it's not widespread. It's sure a freaking big deal to the girl that lost out her Olympic spot because some dude decided that he couldn't hang with the men, so he was going to go try his luck against the women.
I think the argument is then, like, what do you do with that transgender person? What do they get to do?
Sure, I agree.
They have what, right?
Yeah, because right now there's like, if you say you don't get to compete, okay, as a woman, because no one's talking about trans men. No one talks about them.
Like, have fun. Like, good luck.
Just trans women, right? That everybody's caring about. What do we do with them? And I think that's a reasonable question, right? I don't think the answer is, sorry, you're transgender, so you get nothing, right? If it's all about the primacy of the individual, Josh, to use my Joshitarian argument, then what about the primacy of the trans woman who still wants to compete?
Okay, it still applies, because what about the individual who they're displacing? Okay, so why does she get primacy over the individual that she's kicking out of her spot?
Because apparently she's better qualified. Primacy of the individual.
Because she has a penis.
What if her penis was cut off when she was 15 and she now has a constructed vagina, Josh?
It doesn't matter.
You just literally said because she has a penis.
I'm making a joke there. Men biologically are bigger and stronger than women. And it's not just
hormones. Hormones make a big difference.
But it's not just
it's
hormones.
Not 100%, but neither is genetics.
Okay,
so part of the fun of this is, in my little pickup soccer league, right? That not even a league, it's just a pickup soccer game. We have women join us all the time. And sometimes they're from league. Yeah. Sometimes they're women from like the club team or the women's team, and they're the best people out there. Right. And age is irrelevant here because we have everybody from like 18-year-olds to a 70-year-old who plays with us. That said, we have some ex-professional players who play with us who are freaking amazing, right? But yeah, it's not uncommon that we have women come play with us, and they're the best players out there.
That doesn't prove anything.
No, it doesn't prove anything.
Because
Other
if they
than
were so amazing,
where
they
do
would
we
be
put
playing on the men's team.
transgenders? No, they wouldn't, because you can't. Not in NCAA sports.
And professional, you could. There've been
Sure,
there's
not
been
in
women-
NCAA sports. In
There's a
NCAA
woman,
sports, they can't do that.
Okay, great. There was a woman that tried to go kick for a football team, and she was a joke, right? Did you see that? Happened a year or two ago. They brought out a
No, but
woman. I can't remember if it was a college team or a professional team. I want to say it was a professional team. They brought out a woman kicker because they said
for
she was
like
amazing.
an NFL team,
Yeah, I think it was NFL. It was either NFL or
For tryouts.
No, she played in a game.
Oh,
and she
really?
Sucked. I think she only got a kick once or twice, and she sucked. And like, okay, that was a failed experiment.
Well, that's interesting. They'd let her on if they.
Well, they thought she was going to be good. I guess in practice she was like cranking the ball pretty good. But
weird.
then when in game time she was garbage.
It's pressure.
2013, Lauren Silberman became the first woman to try out in an NFL regional combine.
It was just a year or two ago. She made it into an actual game.
Unless
Unless I'm totally spacing this. Pretty sure it happened.
No, I'm looking. So
Well,
there was
anyway.
somebody at the college level, a kicker
I
at
said it might-
Vanderbilt.
It might have been college.
Okay, so college Vanderbilt kicker Sarah Fuller became the first woman to kick, and then
She
Carly
kicked in a
Lloyd.
game.
You guys, I think so. Carly Lloyd, you know who she is, right?
Yeah,
she
she's a
plays for the
soccer
women's
player.
team. She's awesome. She got a bunch of serious offers from teams to actually kick for them, and frankly, I think she'd be great because she's got a rocket.
Well, that's what
She
I
can
thought about
kick.
that girl. What was the girl's name you just said before? Carly
Lauren
Lloyd?
Silberman
I think
was the
that's
one
what it was.
who tried
She
out in
kicked-
2013, and then this is Sarah Fuller
Yeah,
who kicked for Vanderbilt.
she actually kicked in a game, right?
I think so. Let me double
Yeah.
check, but I think that's what it's saying.
And she sucked.
Sarah Fuller.
So if they were as good as
Vanderbilt.
men, they would be playing.
Yeah, she kicked in a game. She kicked off against Missouri, and she made an extra point. Yeah, looks like she did fine.
No, I don't
She was
think so.
able to kick the
Whatever.
ball over 60 yards in games. Yeah, she became the first woman to play in a football game for a Power
Great.
5 conference team when she kicked off for the Commodores against Missouri.
Okay.
2
so
weeks
if
later,
women-
she kicked an extra point.
Okay, if women could do it, they'd be doing it.
All right.
How did we get on that?
Yeah, we got onto that. I think it was like
strayed from our
I think it was
original topic.
identity. No, I said I think it was my fault because I asked about if Ketanji identified as a
Jackson.
woman as a man.
Oh, as a man midway through.
Yeah.
And Josh said she couldn't because we can't define this. We don't know
I
what it
can
means.
define it. She can't define it.
Oh, we're gonna start this over again.
Well, I was in my role at the time, so I didn't get to define it.
Okay, in the
What?
future, can you tell us when you're playing your role? Can
I
you
told
do
Tom.
like it?
Yeah.
I told Tom.
You didn't
I
tell
was
me.
acting.